Welcome to the Intro to Photography, where you will learn the basic types of photography and what kind of goes into getting that right photo. The first thing you have to do when you start photography is find your vision and your passion for it and where it comes from. So that brings to the question that you ask yourself first and foremost, what draws you to photography? Because you need to understand why so you can get the best work out of yourself and know where you're best at from pulling from your aspiration for photography. So that's what I'll ask you to do first, is to ask yourself that question. What draws you to photography? So now that you've asked yourself that question and hopefully answered it and taken the second to do so, we're going to go over the different types of photography first. So there's nature photography, which can be trees or birds, insects, mammals, anything to do with nature, even flowers, in different ways and forms and beauties. And then there's landscape, which is a vast area of land, a landscape, and capturing it in a beautiful way. And then there's headshot photography, which is like your graduation photos or actors who get headshots for acting roles so you can see what they look like. And then there's food photography, which goes on menus where you take photos of food so people can see what you're selling, or for advertisements where you're advertising things on TV or on posters. And there's wedding photography where you go and you take pictures of the bride and the groom, and the bride, the groom, the bridesmaids, and all that together, and families, and pictures of the wedding so they can remember it forever. And then there's abstract photography, which is it's a vast majority of things. It can really be made out of anything. It can be made out of a reflection on the water. It can be made out of a chain link fence that's chained a certain way. It's so abstract is one of the most free forms, I believe, of photography, because you can really use or do anything with it. It's very free. But those are a few types of photography that are much more seen or talked about. It's the very basic neutral types of photography, I believe. So here we have an example of landscape. It's a decent photo. It's a very basic beginner photo. It's just a landscape of a field with a tree line, and you can see the most of the landscape and get a good picture with there's framing and elements, and it just kind of has all of it in one. So that's an example of landscape. This is an example of an abstract photo. As you can see from all the tire marks and how together they are and weaved, and they're not in a certain way where it's like a pattern or the same over and over again. It's very different but yet beautiful. So that's what makes it abstract, is it's very different. And there's not something that you can really string to it when you see it. It can really be interpreted as anything. It doesn't have a distinct feature. This is an example of a nature photograph. So you can see how it has the frog and the beetle on the tree branch, and it's very focused on the piece of nature, which is the beetle and the frog, and they capture it beautifully where the behind is blurred, so it really draws the attraction and the eye to nature. So that's an example of nature photography. So now for the last thing, we'll do some good and bads. So for nature, there's the picture of the bear where the back is blurred out and the flowers are blurred, but you can still sort of see them. So it doesn't take away from the bear in the center that you can clearly see. So it adds something to it without adding too much. And for the bad, you can see how there's a finger in the view, and the photo is very zoomed out, so you can't really see the bird in the back, so it's not really capturing nature as well as you might want. So we'll do one last good and bad to end this off. So this is food photography, and in the good, you can see how the picture captures the food at a perfect angle where you kind of get a view of everything, but not too much, and it doesn't show too little. And it also has like the wine in the glass, so it pulls you in with a few more elements of going there. Like you can have the wine with it, which a lot of older people love to do. So it draws in a fancier, older audience into coming in, and it's very well dressed, so it brings the eye to the food and makes it look a lot better. And then you look at the bad, it's very low quality in photo. There's stuff that's out on the plate, like sauce and stuff, and there's nothing to it. It's very bland, not much, and it doesn't really bring your eye. So that's between the good and the bad for food photography. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch, and I hope you learned something, and I hope you enjoyed.